Hello, everybody. It's debrief time at the new time. Back to the old days of Monday evening. Yes, I do have five-a-side football later on. Yes, we're probably going to get mullered again in five-a-side football, of which I'm a very competitive person. So I'll be coming on maybe tomorrow in a mood. That might happen. But I am on tomorrow with Just Joe at 9 a.m., everybody. If you fancy getting up for me and Joe going at it, as we did today on the counterpoint, make sure you head on over, obviously, to the stream tomorrow at 9 a.m. A bit of a new time for us. But as always, today's episode is sponsored by IPM Group, a top provider of security and facilities management services across the UK. Whether it's CCTV monitoring, commercial cleaning, or custom security solutions, IPM Group offers 24/7 support and cutting-edge technology. Guys, they're our sponsor, our seasonal sponsor, IPM. Rick and the gang have done wonders for the channel. And if you need any of those sort of means seen to, make sure you hit the link in the description below. They are all Leeds fans, season ticket holders, so make sure you do that. Keep it within the community. Now, we are waiting for Mr. Marriott as per usual, but we do have Gabe in the building. But guys, if you want to check another video on after this as well, please make sure you check out my chat with Brownie earlier on, which was certainly interesting. But without any further ado, the man with many opinions, the controversial one on this YouTube Leeds United space is Gabe. Gabe, the American, not Errant Venture, or is that now a separate Twitter account? What's going on, mate? How are we doing?
You can find me at Gabe the American on Twitter. I just decided I can't get away from tweeting about Leeds United. I tried to turn over a new leaf, folks. I tried to say, do you know what? I'm going to do this for my mental health. I'm not going to tweet about Leeds. I'm going to tweet about Star Wars. And turns out that that's a more toxic fandom than the Leeds United fandom. So I'm back and ready to roll. But yeah, listen, let's be honest with the viewers, Connor. The only reason we're doing this on a Monday now is because your five-a-side team is absolute crap this season compared to last year.
Shout out to Jay as well. Seen a lot of far crowd, but not many replacements. Member for 8 months. Jay, hold on. Absolutely hold your horses. We've not even said hello.
I like that it got right into it, though.
To our second guest. I feel like the lighting is like slowly dissipating from like rectangle to rectangle here. But we are introducing Oscar Marriott to proceedings. How are we doing, buddy?
Good, mate. Good. Sorry, I literally couldn't log in for some reason. I don't know why it wouldn't let me log in, but I got in eventually. Yeah, it was like watching Leeds try and break down Burnley's low block on Saturday. Honestly, I was running out of ideas.
Yeah, man. Jay, I've had a lot worse, mate. I've had a lot worse. Let's get into a few of your comments as well. The quality of a good debate is measured in the amount you make your audience think. The debates on this channel just get better and better. John is an articulate, fantastic supporter of the channel. Shout out to the Robin of Bay Whites and the Whitby Whites, of course. Jay says, rough weekend for Leeds and the 49ers, but still confident in both. Carl says, evening all. Grimsby stats, man. Of course, he is here as always.
Opinion. Terrible. This makes it sound like I do stats for Grimsby. It's not helping. It's not helping them.
Before we start, for some reason, my phone is not selecting Joel's comment. Opinions on Disney Star Wars, Gabe, before we kick off, just to really entice the viewers in.
I don't make a distinction between Disney Star Wars and Star Wars. So
okay,
let's not get baited in.
Said with absolutely no emotion whatsoever.
Yeah, let's not get baited into that.
I'll send myself to the bottom of the screen here. Mr. Marriott, what's going on in your life? What's new? Did you head on down to Ellen Road at the weekend? How are you feeling?
Wasn't actually there on Saturday. Wasn't there. Unfortunately, the other kickoffs are a killer at the minute because obviously I've travelled quite a bit. Yeah. The other kickoffs are a nightmare. So I wasn't there. Once you see the game live and all that lot, but quite a hectic weekend really, mate, but all good. Apart from the actual 90 minutes of the game, but other than that, all good.
Yeah, pretty terrible on that front. Gabe, what's going on, mate? I'm seeing you've got some American jersey on there. Explain it to us.
This is UNH hockey.
Okay, you just come with blunt answers today? Is this just we're not
I'm in a direct mood, Connor. I'm in a direct mood.
Okay, so
I want to get direct to the point. I had a lovely weekend, but for the 7 a.m. wake up to watch Leeds United. Subsequently, we had to close down the pool. Summer is truly and fully over. I'm not happy about it. The weather's turning crap. We're going to have to turn the smile upside down somehow. But of course, we're not going to be able to do that because we're talking about Leeds United after we've lost at home to Burnley.
That is true. Very, very true. Also, guys, what we're going to do is we had an announcement for a merchandise drop of which you guys are going to be automatically sort of like introduced to a competition of which you can get involved in for absolutely free. We're going to be dropping some merch on. I think we're going to be doing it tomorrow's video with Joe. So stick out for that one. Make sure we're going to do it tonight, but we'll just release the winner on Patreon as well. So if you want some bonus bits on Patreon, click the link in the description below. We've got loads of bits on there as well, including writings from Gabe. Right. Okay. I have been on several streams. I have written several bits today about Leeds United, and quite frankly, I am exhausted. So I need some new opinions, some new direction, some new avenue. Oscar, I'm going to roll to you, mate, and you can start proceedings, mate. So give us a little bit of a depiction on what on earth went wrong at the weekend.
Well, it's funny you mentioned direction there, Colin, because we had none on Saturday. We had absolutely none. I could not tell you, as soon as we went 1-0 down, I could not tell you how we're going to actually get back into this game. I think the solutions were there, but I wasn't seeing them on the pitch. I wasn't seeing, Tanaka, Ramazani coming on until 10 minutes to go of the game. It's like, what is the point of that? What is the point of bringing in these players if we're not going to use them when we're 1-0 down to potentially a promotion rival until there's 5-10 minutes to go? Yes, I know it's early on in the Leeds careers, but I mean, come on, we've got to kind of wake up a little bit there, surely. I mean, you look at the whole composition of the team in general. It was, I want weak's not a harsh word to use. I'd say it was lacking in power, physicality, massively. I think Elia Gruev, Manuel Solomon, Brendan Aronson, players like that, I think look great against teams like Hull. We're obviously going to sit off a little bit against us. We're going to have nice possession. It's going to be a game where it's just going to be attack versus defence. But in the game where Burnley had the counter-attacking threat at 0-0, to try and sneak the game on the counter if they could, or try and win a set piece high up the pitch. Not high up the pitch, you know what I mean? Win a set piece. It was a massive issue for us, that left-hand side. The amount of times the play would break down and Burnley would just be easy to be able to break through the lines. We're not just talking 10 yards here. We're talking 20 or 30 yards where players are carrying the ball on the counter or in transition, and we're not even engaging with them. We're just running back. We've not got numbers back. We've not got the power to get back up and down the pitch. We've not got the power to stretch the pitch. It was just a nothing performance for me, if we're being honest. It was just a really, really... I try and be positive if I can, but I can't really think of anything positive. And yes, people will allude to the chances we had. James Trafford's made some great saves, by the way, in the game. I'm not going to deny that for 1 minute, but I'm thinking the quality we've got on that pitch or off the bench, when a team just sits off you and they score early, 1-0 up, sort of after 20 minutes, whatever it was. I think it was 18 minutes, wasn't it? You're going to create chances no matter what. If you have that much of the ball, a team just sits off. So, it's a bit of a nothing kind of thing for me. We didn't really ever look like we controlled the game. Never really changed the tempo of the game. And it just fizzled out. With 20 minutes to go, I was kind of like, we're going to lose this. There was no feeling that we're going to get back into it. And it's shocking, really, for us to be in this position. And you're looking at this team and thinking we should be easily finishing top 2 this season. We're already 4 points off.
So what's the hysteria then? Because I've got to play devil's advocate because I know exactly.
No, of course.
I know where you two are going here, and I know specifically Darth Vader up in the corner is going to go on a similar dark route.
He's gearing up.
But I've got to play devil's advocate here, and
listen, it's not all negative.
Burnley,
wait, you got to let him play devil's advocate.
Burnley, recently relegated side. Yes, it wasn't an ideal route, of course, as losing that game at the weekend. Still a lot of quality on the pitch. Game plan was evident from Scott Parker. That for me, they didn't come to play football. It was purely counter-attacking. Stands from moment one. Is that a compliment to Leeds United? Probably in that sense. But is this just one of those games? Because Portsmouth 3-3, yes, okay, but we should have scored 8 goals. The facts are we didn't, and this is maybe a continuation of last season. We should have on another day, etc., etc. West Bromwich Albion, a bit of a nothing game. We are the only mark on their 100% winning record so far. Middlesbrough, a humbling, an absolute battering, has to be said. Hull, Sheffield Wednesday, 2 clean sheets, 2 good performances in a sense. And then Burnley, a 1-0 loss. I mean, can we look at this as a little bit of an outlier, or is that an outrageous thing to say?
Well, one thing I will say is, being me and Gabe, had a bit of an argument 2 weeks ago. I say a bit of an argument. It turned into like sort of 30 minutes of. In the
you
end,
said it was only 5 minutes after it was done. Do you remember?
Yeah. It was one of those. And to be fair, I disagreed. In terms of what Gabe was saying about the underlying numbers, and I did. All right, no, I did agree with the underlying numbers. It was a concern, but I did think we had the solutions in the team for it not to be a concern, if that kind of makes sense, to improve the situation. That situation can only improve if you actually use the players who should improve the situation. Tanaka and Ramazani have been brought in for a reason. You're thinking, I mean, there's a world where they don't start on Saturday against Cardiff. I think they probably don't start against Cardiff. I think Solomon and Gruev are probably backed again to play, or Aronson, whoever it is.
You're right. It's going to be the same.
I'm not just picking on Solomon and Gruev, by the way. I just want to point that out. It's not just down to them. They're being asked to play roles that they're not suited to being played. It's fundamentally an issue. But yeah, Burnley are a good team. Fair play to how they set up. In terms of it's not personally football I particularly enjoy, but sometimes styles make fights, as the old boxing kind of saying goes. And, ultimately we let Burnley settle into what they were doing. We didn't really change the tempo. We didn't catch Burnley high up the pitch. Every single time we won the ball back, we allowed Burnley to retreat into position. And the thing I look at is, it's all well and good being a possession-based team, but even the best possession-based teams in the world do mix things up. Look at Man City's second goal against Brentford. Ederson, I don't know if you lads have seen it or not.
It's Route 1, wasn't it? Route 1.
Ederson literally picks up the ball and launches it into Erling Haaland. This is not just a one-off either. Whenever you watch Man City for a 90-minute game or on the highlights, you see Ederson often plays passes over the top and long. Now, I'm not saying I want us to suddenly become a Route 1 team, but doesn't just have to be short pass, short pass, short pass, short pass. You can mix things up a little bit, and it doesn't feel like we mix things up. And that's been an issue throughout the Farke kind of era, really, if we're being totally honest. Even under Bielsa, from time to time, we would mix things up. And Arsenal, the amount of goals they get from set pieces, there's different bits and pieces, and we just feel like a very one-dimensional team. And when the game state goes against us, or it's a game that we don't really feel suited to, we don't find the solutions, or we're not able to adapt to it. So that's a concern. But yeah, for sure, it's not over. I'm not saying that for 1 minute, but ultimately it feels to me like it's going to be a season at best similar to last, where we kind of flattered to deceive. We'll maybe have four or five games where we maybe win 2-0 or something, and it looks like we're building on something, and then bang, hit the wall, and then we don't win the 6th game. And it feels like it'll be that kind of momentum for us. And that's the best case scenario. If we don't sort things out, that's the best case scenario for me, is a similar season to last season. It could easily be worse, but it's still top 2 is definitely on. The winning the league is 100% still on. I don't look at any of teams in this league and think, wow, I fear them kind of thing. I think people like Carlos Corberan are probably the best managers in the league, the best operators in the league kind of thing. And we probably maybe do need a team to come in for Carlos Corberan potentially at some point. But we look at West Brom. Look at West Brom's team. No disrespect to West Brom at all. There's not many players in that West Brom team who would get into the Leeds team at this moment in time, even on the run of form that we're on. So
I think their team's absolutely tripe. I think it's a tripe team. I really do.
It's Carlos Corberan, isn't it? If you take Carlos Corberan out of it, it's a team that is top half kind of thing. We're mid-table, top half kind of team. It's probably not even making the top 6.
Well, okay. Well, let's sort of.
It's just to fundamentally say we are massively underachieving at this moment in time.
Do you think we're underachieving right now?
Massively underachieving at the moment.
Even though we got 3 clean sheets and won the last 2 games before this one, we're massively underachieving.
Well, if you look at the table, we're below 2 teams who were in League One last season. In terms of Oxford,
but we're 1 point off the playoffs and 4 points off top 2.
Playoffs isn't good enough for Leeds this season. For me, I can't accept playoffs this season. We should be finishing top 2.
So your standard, we can't even be putting 2 or 3 wins together at a certain stage. Your standard is that Leeds United have to be averaging those top 2 positions throughout the season as well.
I think we should be, yeah. Listen, if we're 3rd or 4th and pushing for top 2 and have real good momentum, then fair enough. But I just can't look at us at this moment in time and think top 6 is good. You've got people like Ethan Ampadu in the team, Pascal Strout, players that
I appreciate how you just said his last name, by the way. You've done
I know,
well.
got it right for once. I mean,
well.
normally when I'm
Which one was
flustered,
this?
He said Pascal Strauch, and I
Yes,
stumbled
Oscar.
over
It's only taken 3 years, lad. Good
it's
man.
one of them. It's one of them. I'll clap myself.
Right.
There.
Let's Oscar. Let's chime on to Gabe. Gabe, I know you've been waiting to go, mate. So okay, 400 people in the building right now, and let us know your thoughts on what Oscar just said, or just give us your initial thoughts.
Listen, 400 people in the building, and at least half of them have gone to the Jesse Marsh school of excuses. I keep seeing stuff of, Joseph scores is a different game. Nanto scored. That's all true. That all happened in the first half. We had our group chat going, and I was pretty happy, relatively. I wasn't happy with the score line, but
no meltdown from me as well in the group chat. Quite a good day.
Correct. I'm trying to remember. There was a meltdown, but it wasn't the first half.
I don't know. I think on 90 minutes there might have been.
Yeah, I think we have to wait.
Few
what
swear
we mean.
words.
We have to wait what we mean by meltdown when it comes to Connor. But so it's probably just the usual stuff. But listen, I thought the first half they generated what they needed to generate as a side. Second half was a different story, and that's where the criticisms of the manager come down to. I think I want to frame it in two ways. I'll be honest. Everybody knows this if you tune into the show. I don't like Daniel Farke. I don't particularly like the way he manages. I don't like the way he lays excuses down. That being said, I'm going to give him some credit where credit's due here. And I'm going to be as fair as I can because I have reasons that I'm not panicking, which might be construed as positivity. And then I have reasons that I'm concerned. I think the first thing for me is that Farke's teams always start slow. 2020, 2021, you're talking about a promotion season. It started out with 2 losses, 1 loss, and 1 draw at Norwich. They won the league that year. 2018, 2019 is even worse. 1 win in 6. All right, they start slow. His teams play.
One thing about 2018, 2019, I don't know if Connor will remember this. When we first got to know the Norwich City lads, we played Daniel Farke's team very early on in that season, won 3-0. At that point, they were 100% Farke out at that point in the season. It was way worse than what it is now, kind of thing.
They play relatively predictably to the eye, but that doesn't mean players know exactly how he wants them to play right away. It seems to take a bit of time for some of the players to bed in with Farke. This might be why he doesn't rush new players into the team, like Ramazani, like Tanaka. We'll have to see about that. When you look at the underlying metrics here, this is where I'm trying to stay positive without slipping into the criticism. I'll do the criticism in a minute. This is the last point. We've generated the highest XG in the division from open play, right? That's a fact. You can't dispute that. That is a fact. However, here are the reasons I am concerned, right? I talked about the need to create more chances last week, big chances last week in our quasi debate, Oscar, and then I wrote about it on oneleads.com. Here's what it comes down to for me. Highest XG in open play in the league this season, but that's not true in terms of our set piece XG. This team is bad on corners and free kicks. And for those of you who hate all this XG nonsense, you don't like the data, how about this? We were 22nd in the league last year on set piece goals. 22nd. So even if we're just mildly better on set pieces, we're talking about generating 1 or 2 more big chances, right? I said we generate about 2 or 3 big chances. We're averaging 3 this season, 3 big chances a match. I wanted 3 or 4. That for me is the difference. Now, it's hard to play against a team that sits back and just fouls you and then tries to spring on a counter. But if you don't want to have tiny, tiny margins that determine wins and losses, which, by the way, all the people pointing to Joseph should have scoring, absolutely needed to score that chance, didn't. Nanto should have done better, should have scored. But these should, and then referee stuff. It's childlike to make these excuses or point to 1, 2, or 3 moments in a match over and over and over. We did it under Jesse Marsh, by the way. Remember? Oh, if what's his name doesn't play that bad back pass, or if Bamford scores against Leicester, these are the reasons teams succeed or don't succeed, right? So you need to create more opportunities so you're not hanging on 1 or 2 moments to get through a match with a win. The blueprint to play Daniel Farke right now is too simple. It's simply sit back and have some speed and quality out on a counter, and all you need is 1 or 2 good chances. Now, in the article, I eviscerate Meslier. That goal wasn't Melier's fault. I'm just going to point this out. We lost 1-0. It's not, Connor, it's not. It's not Melier's fault. Kaliosho, an American, by the way, great finish. It is what it is. They only needed 1 big chance and 1 shot on target to put us down. That's why you can't play this way. You need to generate more big chances. And I think ultimately, when I'm looking at the data, I'm looking at the eye test, and when you're watching this team over and over, it has to come from set pieces. Guys, we're so bad. We're tied bottom now on set pieces. No, we're averaging 7 corners a match, and we haven't had one big chance off them. Do you know how bad that is?
I haven't.
The opposition have had more big chances from set pieces this season than we have.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything like it since Bielsa. We've just been the running metric for set pieces for the last 5 years.
It's horrific.
5, 6
Connor,
years.
I don't know how you. Funny enough, 2 seasons, not last season, the season before, we were in top 10 in the Premier League in set piece goals. Of course, we were woeful in every defensive metric, so it hardly mattered. There's an in between that exists here where you can be solid defensively and you can increase your output on set pieces. I don't know if they have to do, but you can't go through. So we say this. I'm gonna grab this comment real quick. We say this, and I agree that it would be better. But in terms of, think about the personnel, because I'm sure at some point we're going to talk about Aronson. We're going to talk about Solomon. We're going to talk about Nanto having a pretty poor performance. But we've had these same conversations when we had Somerville in the team, when we had Jorginho in the team, when we had Bamford at the 9, when we've had Pirou in the team. The issue isn't necessarily the player. And when you look at the underlying metrics, we're doing enough to win the game, but the margins are so small. Do you know what changes these margins when it comes to big chances? Better set piece play. It changes everything. But we stink at set pieces. I can't understand it. We were woeful last season. We're woeful again. Is it something that we just don't drill? It's something that we don't train? I don't know what it is, but if you fix that, we're not even having these conversations because we're dominating possession. We're dominating big chances because you're actually getting some on set pieces. And I'm not talking about scoring 2 or 3 goals on corners a game. I'm talking about getting 1 on target per match. That does put you over the edge when it comes to big chance creation and actual goals scored. Right now, it's just not good enough. It's not good enough. And I don't know how you expect to win. And the real question is, and I'll pivot over to you, Connor, because I can see you ready to shift. The real question is this team playing well enough and good enough? Because people are going to point to last season and say, well, we're further along than we were last season. The league was more difficult last year. Do we think that the league is poor enough that we can go on playing like this, try to get close to 90 points again, and that's going to automatically take us up? I think that's the calculus we're probably speaking of here. But for me, we're not even having these conversations. We're not even worried about it if the set pieces improve. And I think that's the most glaring bit in our offensive play, because again, personnel have come and gone. The ability to play that pass. Where's the pass? Where's the final pass when they're cramming 8 in the box? Where is it? Like who's unlocking? Who's free in the box that is going to be targeted?
I thought of from when I played anyway, like, you know, if you were setting up as a low block, you know, if you weren't good enough, or let's say you were defending against a really good team. Brownie's mentioned it earlier on for his side, how they're defending. But what the team does, and Oscar will know this when you look at Man City, and it's relative. I mean, when you look at back in the day when they had Jesus and Aguero up front, the strikers would be on the pitch and they'd pin the centre-backs. They'd absolutely pin the centre-backs. Then you have the full-backs coming up on the flanks as well. And then you get essentially the rest of the side, including the full-backs, inverting, and you'd pin everybody centrally. You'd just suffocate the side and you'd go up as a unit. Now, for me, there was just a few things of which I don't understand about this low block thing. I think Gabe makes a very, very good point in terms of set pieces. I can't for the life of me, and going back to the nostalgia days, Rio Ferdinand used to do this a lot for us. He'd run across the front man every single time. And invariably, it's because, there might be a poor delivery, or, it might just be a targeted set piece of which, you're going to run across the front man, you're going to flick it onto someone at the back post, Viduka, Smith, Matty, or whatever. He used to do that a lot. So I don't understand why there isn't a man running across that front post every single time. Because every time I watch Leeds United, we hit the front man at least 40 or 50% of the time. So why is someone not running across that front man?
That's where Fark's being too conservative. That's what needs to change. I don't think it needs to be a massive personnel shift.
No, it doesn't.
Or necessarily even a change in the way we play from open play. Because I think our open play stuff has been pretty good. What hasn't been good is, we're the most fouled team in the division. We're top of the table. Why do you think that is? Because they know we're not going to score from a set piece. Just pack the box, foul us, and say, try to score. You can't, we'll get you on the counter. Because eventually you're going to get frustrated, you're going to overcommit, or somebody will make a mistake. If all that needs to happen is one Leeds player one time needs to make one mistake, Solomon falls, and I didn't think there was particularly good communication from Strauch and Bogle to each other about when to step up and when he was coming across. As a defender, that's the nightmare where you're in transition, a player's running at you, and you don't know if your center half has you covered. Center half may not bark at you. Whatever the case may be, maybe that's the keeper's job. But it's only one moment. So if I know as a manager, I've got a terrible team, I'm playing a bunch of good players, and I say, you know what, guys, just kick them. They're not going to score. They're going to get annoyed, and all we need is one hack on goal.
Yeah.
It's not hard.
And a lot of people think that that's probably not the depth that managers go into, but I think it's a lot more basic. I mean, you know, some of the top managers in the game, Ferguson being the classic one, was very, very basic when it came to a manager. You know, you get all the top pros are on the overlap, etc., saying like he was an unbelievable manager and he was very basic with his communication. It's not all expert analysis and complicated. Right. It really isn't. So I completely, I think Thomas Frank said that on Sky Sports as well. It's all about basic communication and basic delivery so the players know exactly what they're doing, when and where. I think there's a few fundamental things here as well. I think it's interesting how we've moved into we've inverted a hell of a lot more. It's really interesting that for me, because you've got three of the players in behind Joseph now who were inverting. It's the first time at the weekend I'd seen an opposition purposefully pack out that midfield to combat that. So then you are heavily relying on width, of which the fullbacks, you're kind of forcing them wider and you're forcing them to, you know, provide good balls in. I didn't think at all you had Firpo and Bogle testing their back line out wide enough at all whatsoever. I think they were looking for combinations, but obviously you've got the other three inverting, so you're not going to get those combinations out wide. It's not Bielsa-esque. So I very much think you're relying on those fullbacks a lot. And it was interesting, for the first time we've had those three central, and Parker packed out that box and packed out that central space because he knew we were going to essentially have three attacking midfielders and we were going to rely and push Leeds out wide. And what Parker thought to himself is, well, if they get down to the byline, what's going to happen is they're going to lump the ball in, and we trust Stave and Joe Worrell to get ahead of Matteo Joseph. So they were funneling us out wide for that reason, really. And it worked. And it worked, and it worked, and it worked, and it worked, and it worked. And we just did not see any sort of... I thought throughout the game, why don't we, to combat their central counter-attacking, why don't we invert our fullbacks? Why don't we invert our fullbacks to pack out that central space as well? We add additional bodies into our attacking space, but also you prevent the counter-attack as well, because you essentially go man for man then, and you spread out wide Manor Solomon and Willie Gnonto and do it that way. So you've got a real spread in the front line, but you're still packed out on our side, preventing that counter-attack.
But then they just foul you, Connor.
Well, yeah. But
and then what do you do on the set piece? And then they get the ball on a goal kick.
We are just too one-dimensional. Fundamentally,
we are
very relying on
and I don't
games.
think, and I don't think we have the dark arts. You know, sometimes, you know, I saw Matteo Joseph go down in the box. I saw Stave just literally shout over him. Why is nobody getting involved in that? Why? He's a young lad. Get involved. Back him up. You had three Burnley players around it. The simple things like that. It just felt very flat at the weekend, I thought. And, you know, you don't want this to be a consistent thing, but I just found it interesting. Parker, we know he's not a bloody master tactician, but it was the first time when you had those three attacking midfield bodies inverting consistently that team packed out that central space, of which we didn't really know what to do. And teams are going to do that more and more often and funnel Leeds out wide.
Well, that's the concern, though, Connor. You know, teams are going to follow that blueprint now. You know, we sort of saw it in that first season under Bielsa, where we started the season like a house on fire. And I think it was that Birmingham game, I think it was like 10 games into the season, where the basically time wasted for most of the game, hit us on set pieces big time, a lot of teams went to a 4-4-2 because they knew when they had a big man, little man sort of strike partnership, we couldn't really cope with it within our man marking, because we didn't have the player to win the aerial duel and the player to follow the run from the aerial duel. And it just caused us a lot of problems under Bielsa. But Bielsa got to the bottom of it. But it did take quite a bit of momentum out of our season. And ultimately, I think we've got a similar potential issue this season as well. You know,
Oscar, just to add to your point, Granger says there, but they created no threat from the counter. They scored from our corner being cleared. They offered no that. But
I just say on that
quickly, go on,
again, it was down to some really, really good defending from Pascal Strauch a lot of the time. We can't just rely on that. A lot of the time, Pascal Strauch was left, Rodon and Strauch were left 2-on-2, and we just somehow, partly through some really poor final delivery from Burnley, by the way, as well. You know, they did still have some moments where I thought that was a shocking pass, or shocking shot.
I thought their best moments were on the counter attack. Really, I think the Jaden Anthony,
exactly.
Jaden Anthony had been blocked on the line by Rodon. That was on the counter attack, wasn't it?
Fundamentally, our issue is, and I totally agree with you, by the way, we do need to be mixing things up. Do you try inverting the fullbacks? But fundamentally, for a couple of reasons, the issue is the lack of physicality in the team. And it's not that we have a lack of options. Tanaka is a very tenacious midfielder. Rothwell is tenacious in that midfielder. Just think in a big game, I'm not sure I'm going Gruev in a big game like that, where it's quite even on quality.
But as well, Oscar, what we're doing here is providing solutions, so I don't think it's negative. This is what I wanted to get on the debrief.
Yeah.
I wanted to actually provide
the solutions are in the squad.
Of which isn't. We've got the solutions, we've got the depth, in my opinion. I think I'll just pivot quickly over to Gabe as well, just to interrupt you. Sorry there, Oscar. But
no worries, mate.
The high press when it's coming to a counter attack as well, Gabe. I feel like a lot of it is I mean, and you saw it in that first when Koleosho was incepted and Joseph pressed his touch, won the ball, had to score. We all know that, had to score. But I feel a lot of it is initiated by Joseph. And sometimes, Gabe, I don't feel when you've got a team on the opposite side whose main threat is a counter attack, surely offering a high press and going up as a unit is just going to suffocate them. And we don't seem to do this consistently.
We don't play this way under Farka. Like, we don't play a high press. Sometimes we'll play kind of a mid-block press with the center forward and a winger or two, just giving some light pressure. I thought, as you mentioned, we were pretty rampant in the first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
When the higher up we got, we talked about this all last season, wanting a high press, and we thought it was a matter of personnel. It's a matter of systemic play, guys. He doesn't want to do it. He's not going to do it. And I understand that Leeds United under Bielsa were known for murder ball. It's just not the way Daniel Farka plays. Additionally, because remember, the buildup is different when you pressure, dispossess, and you move quickly versus where you force like a dispossession in the central of the midfield and then play slowly and pedantically by intention. That's not even a criticism. It's the Farka ball is meant to wear you out. You just play side to side, and he's saying you're going to lose your discipline, and we're going to have enough opportunities to score to win the game, and we're going to remain defensively compact. The problem is when teams don't want to play and don't decide to hide. Like in the beginning, Burnley was kind of pressuring us a bit higher up on the park. Once they got their goal, they're like, nah, we're going to sit back. And it's not particularly tiring if you're okay with. Interesting tweet I responded to earlier because somebody said, everyone talks about dominating the game, but we lost the game. And they let us have the ball. Are you really dominating if you're dominating by your opponent's design? Yeah. And I think my concern with Farka is that he's a bit of a football purist when it comes to his ideology. He'll look and say, we were better in every phase of the game. And this is not just Farka. It's a lot of people that come out of the Bundesliga, to be honest. And Jesse Marsch is one of them. How many times did we hear him say, we're better in this phase of the game? The reality is, though, and there's a reason why people didn't like Mourinho tactics, because it was a little bit similar. He played with better teams, obviously, but you absorb pressure, you frustrate a team, and then you hit them once or twice and then just defend. It's a much more deconstructive game plan than trying to play this, slow but rhythmic metronomic short pass football.
Is Logan on with something? It's just a bit of a variable here, Gabe. I do think having 8 of our starting 11 playing international games affect the poor performance of the game. Should have been changes or even playing 3-4-3. What I would say,
I'll accept it for this game, but
Logan. What I'll also say as well, mate, is and this isn't a player who would have just won us the game, but there was a guy on the bench who got 10 minutes who didn't go away for international duty and was signed for 11 million euros. So I do 100% get that, mate, and you are right. But I think maybe the utilization of can we talk about it? Can we talk about it?
Tanaka and Ramazani started the game, I think at the very least we got a result out of it. I really do. I really do think.
I don't know how you
that's easy to say now.
There is a reason for this. There is a reason for this. Okay. Fundamentally, when you've got Burnley just sitting off you, you need someone to break the lines. Elia Gruev doesn't break the lines in that sense. In that team that started against Burnley, the player who will break the lines the most is Pascal, centre-back. He'll break the lines better than our number 10. He'll break the lines better than our midfielders. That in itself is a concern. That's why, for me, you need someone like an Altanaka in there to just link the midfield and the attack.
But Oscar, I'm sorry, they're not playing us. Line-breaking passes are important when you're playing against on an entire pitch. They're conceding 75% of the pitch to us. And they're just like, what line is there to break? Who is sitting on the other side of a defender waiting for a final through ball to go in clean on goal? They're packing the box with 8.
Yeah, I'm talking about passes that just move the Burnley block around, find those gaps and find those spaces. That's what, for me, Tanaka has been brought in to do. And then the other side of it as well is Ramazani. For me, even if he didn't have the greatest of end products in that last 10 minutes, and by the way, the game was that frantic at that moment.
Yeah.
When a player's coming on coals, it's asking a lot for him to suddenly change the game and get a goal or assist out of nothing. When the whole momentum of the game is just not with us.
Oscar, I think Gabe's on the money there. Like Tanaka, I was calling him for him to come on at some moments, and a lot of it was the occasional transitional moment. I felt for about 10 minutes we went into a bit of an end-to-end game for about 10 minutes, and I thought Burnley sort of lost the shape a little bit. And they were playing a really sort of good game, and then they lost. I think it was 50 to 60th minute. It just turned into an end-to-end, and that's probably where you want Tanaka. But if there's no space, and they're saying to Leeds, "Come on, try," that's what they were doing. Go on, try it. We're talking about us, the athletic side of the game earlier on, right at the beginning, the physicality side of it. I thought Burnley looked sort of level up on us on that front, and I think that's going to aid with a low block. Of course, it is. And what are you supposed to do? Ramazani, for me, is an obvious one, because Ramazani is going to create space. There's going to be 1-2s there. There's going to be taking a man on, of which we didn't do at the weekend. There was no taking a man on, so you're not going to be able to curate space.
Right, there's no space to be had.
Move into pockets if we're not taking on men and we're just going lateral. But I do sort of agree with Gabe that if you put in Tanaka,
you don't think would have been better in midfield having Tanaka rather than Gruev?
If the game's more open, Oscar, I agree with you, but what they did in the beginning, they were playing with us a little bit. And fine, I agree there. But where we played most of that match was in their half, and they just packed the box. The way you beat that is you play in crosses and try to head a ball in, or you score on a set piece. You're not going to play around or through a team that's packing 8 in the box with a lot of tactical discipline. And I'll give them some credit. They were very disciplined.
Well.
And they played that. Sean Dyche talks about that V in the box. They essentially played that for 75 minutes.
But
they didn't just let us play the ball. They let us play the ball deep, because they're you can't get through.
Gabe, I also think if you've got Ampadu there and you've got Tanaka there, I sort of get what Oscar's saying. I mean, Gruev is a certain profile of player for me. I've mentioned several times that I think he's limited, but at least without Tanaka, what you're going to get is not only him ticking over, but probably percentile wise in the time that he's on the pitch in comparison to Gruev, I'm going to say at any stage he's going to play more direct balls forward. So that there's going to be something there as an advantage for Leeds, as opposed to Gruev being on and primarily just playing lateral passes and backwards. The last 8 minutes were insane, because the last 8 minutes you think to yourself, come on, lads, come on, let's go. We went back to Ilan Mele 3 times. And I think just the worry about the shape at the end. We've got 2 right backs on the pitch playing the same position. We've got Gruev playing centre back. Tanaka and Rothwell, as you said in the group chat, Oscar, have no idea what was going on in terms of their significant roles. Perot was playing wide right. It was just, I just thought it was all up in the air a little bit. And as you quite rightly said, mate, desperate. But I have to say as well, just putting a bit of a cap on it and a bit of a plug on this. I have to say, what we do on the debrief, everybody, is we try to just offer solution, but also break down the games and moments. And of course, but we're not saying it's signed, sealed, delivered, we're done here. Nobody's erratic, nobody's irrational and saying, this is it, get far crap. Nobody said that right now. I think what we've got to do on here is essentially debrief what happened. And then hopefully there's going to be changes, and you guys have got your voices, of course, in the comment sections and super chats and etc. And we've got to debate what goes on and have a bit of discourse and discussion. I don't want this to ever be an echo chamber, and I don't think it is an echo chamber, because there's always a varied level of opinion here. But we have to say, let's not throw the dummies out the pram here and say that it's all over. I think Leeds are still well on course, but I do. If you were to ask me a direct question, Connor, are you convinced by this manager? I'm not. Does that mean I'm Arsenal Fan TV of 2018-19 in lockdown? I want him out. It's not, but I find it very difficult, really, really difficult to see some of the same things when it comes to a low block and an effective team in a low block, of which we are going to face more of those this season. and us struggling again with almost a plan B aside from just that one-dimensional X-factor player gets us out of it.
And that's the point I was making about, I'm not saying that I don't want to, I agree with you, Oscar, about, but this was sort of the crux of some of the disagreement last week. I agree with you that I want to see Ramazani and Tanaka in the team. Although I think some of the calls from Tanaka from a lot of the fan base, they've never seen him play. I agree that I think that we could be better in some aspects of the game. The reality is we play the way we play because the players are instructed to play that way. And if we think that, again, when we look at set piece play and our inability to sometimes break down low blocks and are being caught out on the counter against lesser teams, Blackburns, QPRs, Rotherham, teams like that, Ramazani's not going to fix what Crescencio Somerville couldn't. You know what I mean? Like, we had a player on the left wing last season who was the best in the championship. And like, I hope Ramazani's that type of player. That'd be awesome. But the systemic problems are still the same. The blueprint to beat Leeds is still the same. Just try to get a goal. If not, just pack the box, foul them, and then break it, because they're never going to score on a set piece.
No, there is that. But I think what I'd also point out is we didn't have a natural right back who Daniel Farke trusted last season. So that's different in that kind of sense. We actually have two overlapping fullbacks. So I don't think we're necessarily trying to play exactly the same way in terms of the general idea. I think it's the same. I'll definitely agree with that. But in terms of the way the shape of the team, I think it's very different. I think it says we have got two overlapping fullbacks. Matteo Joseph's an out-and-out number 9. We didn't really, Patrick Bamford was playing as a number 9, but never really had the pace to stretch a pitch the way Matteo Joseph can.
Shouts for him to start when he comes back already. Seeing it everywhere.
No, not for me.
This was my concern about going with Joseph, is because, I mean,
he's getting
a goal and a couple of, and it's not even a criticism of Joseph, but my concern was, I mean, we're 5 games in. There are people replaying the miss over and over and over. Listen, if you play a guy, you got to criticize him, and I agree. I criticize him in the group.
Should have scored.
I said you have to score. It's inexcusable. But this is my concern. My concern is that now we have this 20-year-old kid who half the fan base is now calling to be benched for Patrick Bamford, and that for me is ridiculous.
But it's totally ridiculous because the chance Matteo Joseph had came from Matteo Joseph. If Patrick Bamford's on the pitch, he doesn't have the speed to burst away, may even win the ball back in the first place. Yes, Joseph should have scored, but it all came from Joseph himself. So, if the team had created a chance like that for Joseph, maybe it's a bit of a different story. You could say maybe Perot would have scored it, but Perot would never have got into that situation in the first place. So, I find that really
true, Oscar. But if you're going to have a chance of that high quality, you have to put the ball on target.
Of course he does.
We can't save him from that criticism. But this is my concern when you roll out a 20-year-old and say be our number 9 all season, because I don't know how he's going to handle the criticism. It's fair criticism, but we as a fan base tend to be a little bit excessive sometimes in the way we pile on players. And I am concerned about that for him. Hopefully he can handle
number 9s get into that situation. Is my point is, I agree he should definitely score, but I just think if Matteo Joseph is not the issue of this Leeds team at the moment, yes, goals haven't been flowing, but we've not been creating chances for him. The XG, that what you see on the eye, whether you data, you trust data or you don't trust data, and you just trust the eye test. Whatever you trust, chances are not flowing for Matteo Joseph.
What's the overarching opinion right now on Jayden Bogle? I'm interested to get your thoughts on this. It has to be said, it's been a mixed bag, hasn't it? It's been a really mixed bag. He started fantastic against Sheffield Wednesday, hideous against Portsmouth. Good against Hull, but I thought Jaden Anthony had the better of him at the weekend.
Yeah,
I think people are looking to blame somebody, and I think Jayden Bogle's a new guy that their angry Archie Gray is gone, and I think that they're scapegoating him a little bit. Some of his performances haven't matched the proportion of venom they're getting from the fan base. I don't think he's been great at times. I think in some matches he's been very good, but again, I've seen people eviscerate him for the goal. It's your nightmare scenario as a fullback, especially when you're not particularly defensive minded, or a center back, is when you have a fast player of Koleosho's attributes coming at you unmarked. So you come out early and he skins you and he puts you on a poster. You stay for me, that's a team defensive breakdown. Melier tells him to go up higher. He needs to go up higher. Pascal maybe makes it known that I'm covering the cross, which I didn't see him do. It's a team breakdown and it's one moment. Now I understand when the margins are this small, but if we're going to blame Bogle for, no one in this chat's doing it, but if we're going to blame Bogle for a loss because he didn't make a defensive play, then surely you have to blame Joseph for not making a relatively easy conversion, or blame Nanto for not scoring what should have been a clear goal. He had clear in on the keeper, just him and the keeper. So I think we're looking for scapegoats. We're dissatisfied. I think that's more of a case versus him actually being that bad. It needs to improve. Rodon needs to improve. Anthony needs to improve. Yesterday, Anthony was poor. Had one of his lowest passing completion percentages he's had in a Leeds shirt, 78%, and he had 2 less progressive passes than Ilya Gruev, who, by the way, is not really a progressive pass savant. I'm gonna look at it and say it looked like he picked up a knock on his ankle. He was clearly uncomfortable, so I'm gonna file it away on that. And he's not been poor this season, but I mean, you need your captain to play a little bit better.
I read it different. I read it differently. I thought he was all right. Thought he had a good game.
No, I think he's been good this season, but I think he was a shocker for him, to be honest, against Burnley.
Is that just based? Is that based on the standard that we have for Ampadu, though?
Yeah, there is that. I mean,
there has to be that.
Yeah. It was a sort of a 5 or 6 out of 10 game for me. I wouldn't say it's the worst game I've ever seen from a Leeds midfielder at all.
Let's talk about the overall thoughts then right now, because there seems to be this thing of Farke in, Farke out. I don't think with that
we're not there yet.
I don't think I don't think we're all very Arsenal fan TV like that, where you can have an opinion. You can say Farke has positives, but you can also say Farke has negatives without being in or out. I think it's a very sort of very, very sort of reactionary and almost extreme take to just say, well, you either want him in or out. I don't agree with that whatsoever. But fundamentally, the 49ers, interestingly, were all there at the weekend. I felt, they rolled out Will Farrell, didn't they? Which seemed to be
they bring in celebrity guests, and you believe me, they want to win those games.
And this is what I was getting on. It feels like the big games, obviously in the States, even when it comes to just general sort of the big 4 sports in America, they roll out all of the celebrities and the teams that they. If they support that team or whatever, you'll see them pan to them, won't you, on the big screens and stuff. It's a very sort of American way of doing it. They seem to do it the basketball a lot. And it happened at the weekend, and Sky were really focusing on it, and the big guns were in. Parag was over as well. And there was it seemed like a lot of focus on boardroom there, because it was probably the biggest game. They picked out one of these games, against one of the demoted 3, we should say, and Burnley at home is a big fixture. Obviously, there's American relations in the boardroom at Burnley as well, so that might have transpired a little bit. What are they thinking right now? Are they thinking anything? Is it just, we heard Kinnear speak, didn't we? And he said, look, fully behind him, and I'm sure they are, as we all are. But what do we think they're thinking? Because Farke, I think, will be fine this season, but it's top 2 or nothing. Do you think some of them, after the start, are maybe thinking? Do you think there's maybe some conversation at least, or are we thinking it's just no, route 1 and he's our man?
I think any football club, there's always conversation. I think unless it's like Man City and Pep Guardiola, I don't think any manager is ever truly, totally, safe regarding anything. But I think I don't think we're going to make a rash decision like that. If we don't beat Cardiff, suddenly Daniel Farke is going to be collecting his P45. I don't think that is the case, but I do think.
I think if he doesn't beat Cardiff, there is an absolute massive pressure.
The noise is only going to get bigger if we don't put together 2 or 3 wins on the bounce pretty convincingly. The noise is only going to get bigger. Really, bottom of
the table, been atrocious so far.
Yeah, exactly. Cardiff have been shocking so far this season. But if we keep playing a team that's lacking so much physically, kind of thing, we're not just talking 1 or 2 players. With half the team, you're looking at and thinking they're not particularly great at running. You think no team is possession based and successful without having good levels of athleticism in the team. It's not just the fact of I think a lot of the focus always on the possession-based team is what they do with the ball, but it's got to be what they do without the ball as well to win it back. Against Burnley, every single time, play broke down, we weren't able to suffocate them. Burnley were just able to get out, find Koleosho or Jadon Anthony and try and get back up the pitch and win a throw-in or win a set piece or something just to try and relieve the pressure. It was too easy for Burnley. Solomon, Gruev, again, not to say it's their fault, because they've just been put in roles they're not suited to. In terms of in that game, you need them to be backing up the press. You need to be backing up, Joseph in that kind of sense on that left-hand side. It's too easy for teams to play through our left-hand side. I think
I actually disagree on this, Oscar. I disagree on this. So for me, I do think it needs, one of the things that I think that Solomon has done well is, I mean, he won 6 of his 8 ground duels. I mean, he does track back and get involved quite a bit. Nanto, I got to be honest, Nanto for me was really poor, and he does, sometimes he doesn't put the graft in. He say like he'll just kind of throw his hands up in the air and laugh at the official, and especially when you're playing a counter-attacking team. Now, I'm not scapegoating him for a loss or anything. I don't want to, but I think that a lot of times we hone in on some of these guys. I think part of the reason the high press, well, we don't do a high press, but some of the reason the pressure doesn't work is I don't see the application consistently enough from Nanto. This is why he frustrates me as a player in general, because he's had such a high ceiling and he can be so good, but I just don't see him dialed in for 90 minutes. And I have complaints with Solomon's play and his end product, and the fact that he's sort of doing some things predictably over 5 matches is still too early to say. But I don't have any issues with the way he's pressuring or the way he's getting involved defensively. My issues are what happens on Nanto's side.
It's not on Solomon, by the way. Solomon's come back off a big injury, and I'm not blaming Solomon, by the way.
8 months.
With the ball, I've got no criticism of Solomon. Yes, he lost the ball in a bad area. I'm not going to dispute that.
Yeah, it's a mistake.
That shouldn't lead to a goal, by the way. That really shouldn't lead to
the halfway line.
Beyond the halfway line, it was a lot further on than that on the pitch. You know, it's crazy that leads to a goal.
Halfway line.
I'm not even talking about like us pressing high the pitch. We don't press really. I think we were in pre-season, which was exciting me quite a lot. The fact that we were looking to suffocate teams in that way. I'm just talking about covering distances. You know, when you're playing possession-based football and committing so many people up the pitch, you've got to be able to cover the distances if you lose the ball. And if you're losing the ball, 70 yards up the pitch, away from your own goal, and not getting anyone engaging.
But Oscar, in all fairness, in build-up, you've seen Gruev, and you both will have seen this. He goes to a left back spot. Yeah. That's instruction. So he goes to left back spot. Numbers out on that flank, obviously, and Leeds build up that way as well. And Gruev does that a lot, and he's always looking to go forward. Of course, he is. The problem with me is when you've got 2 fullbacks, we're essentially doing a 3-1-6 in build-up, and they're acting as wingers. If they're flying forward, the risk if you lose the ball in build-up is massive. And that's why we kept seeing 2 versus 2. That is strategy. That is framework. That is structure. Surely that is enacted by the manager. I understand. Look, everyone's been talking about the Barclays period and how players were managers on the pitch as well. They were back in the 90s. I felt like there's way more responsibility. But nowadays, as me, you, and Gabe have spoken about, everything nowadays is about system. It's not about individuality anymore. It's system. And this is the whole argument right now when it comes to Daniel Farke and relying on these X factor moments, because I think that's been ebbed out of the football game now. I think a lot of it is based on strategy and system, Gabe.
That's part of the problem, I think. When you look at some of these teams that are more pragmatic, I was looking at some underlying data for competing midfielders because I wanted to look at what the average progressive passes were across these teams that we like the Brownhills of the league and that. And some of these teams have played 4 different formations over 5 matches. Now, I'm not saying that that's a great way to play, but it shows that there's a level of pragmatism amongst some managers of you have to play some teams different ways.
And towards the end, Gabe, people would argue back to you and say, well, we were playing a different formation, Gabe. For the last 20 minutes, we were playing a different formation. In
was
game.
Was it a formation or were we just throwing players up?
Well, but 100%.
The style was the same, though. We were trying the same things, with the formation. I agree, the formation, I don't even know what it was towards the end, but if we can just go back to the fullback points, in terms of pushing both fullbacks high.
Yep.
I'm not on the right-hand side. I don't think there's a massive issue with that possession. I think it's a lot better when Dan James is on that right-hand side because he's so energetic. Dan James would have probably found a way to stop that goal on Saturday, to be honest with you. But it's one of those. We're a lot more reliant on Dan James than what people think. Not just in terms of the pressing, in terms of the balance he brings to the team, the way he stretches play on that right hand side to create the space. But
not against low blocks, Oscar. That's the real issue we've had. But we talked about this last season when Nanto wasn't getting in the team. When teams were lining up, like the Chef Wednesdays, where they were lining up against us in a low block, it was difficult with Dan James. We're like, why don't you have Nanto in? Because he can take that big switch.
I agree with that. Yeah. But pace isn't useless against a low block either. You can still create separation through having speed. In terms of you want to take your fullback on 1v1, you've got Dan James would beat anyone for pace kind of thing. Ramazani would beat anyone for pace at this level.
If those fullbacks, though, playing a low block, if I'm the man or if I'm a center half, I'm telling the fullbacks, give him a little bit of space And because he's not going to play across, just don't charge at him and let him touch past you and then generate a chance. And now we're numerically out of balance. You stay compact and you basically say, go ahead, send a ball in, because you've got nobody here that's gonna win it with your head. That's what I'm saying with Dan James. I don't think having
James
guys
is brilliant attacking attacking crosses on the back post. How many goals?
But who's in there? But who's making?
That's a useful thing against the low block. Sure,
it is. Who's in the block? Who's in the box? Creating those.
That's two different points, Gabe. I think if he beats his man and puts the ball into the box, I think
that's what I'm saying. You, as a center half, you say to your fullback, don't jump out on him. Literally give him space, and wait till he makes that heavy touch, and then latch onto it.
I agree with you.
Nobody's going to go charging up at him and say, "Hey," because then I'll just put it past you and run.
The main point, though, it's more on the left-hand side, where I think on the right-hand side, I can accept what we've got on the right-hand side in terms of overlapping. I think the balance is okay there. The left-hand side, the balance is not good off the ball. Not good off the ball at all, because you've got Firpo overlapping, which is fine. I've no problem with that. Firpo overlapping will definitely, over a season, the positives will definitely outweigh the negatives, because his delivery for this level is excellent. We've seen it already this season. We've seen it with 8 assists last season. The issue is, if play breaks down, that's a problem in itself, but it's an even bigger problem when you've got people alongside Firpo on that left-hand side, in Gruev and Solomon, who can't cover the distance to cover Firpo, if that makes sense. If the ball breaks down, they can't cover that space quickly behind Firpo to allow Firpo to get back. Teams can just transition on us and get up the pitch on that right-hand side. And I just think teams against us, Cardiff will be like this. Their right-hand side, they're going to try and play down that right-hand side. They're going to try and win the ball, sit in a low block against us.
No excuses. I'm not, I don't care. I do not care. And that's like you are, everything you're saying, Oscar's bang on. And look, systematically you bang on, but I don't care what Cardiff City are going to do. They are bottom of the table. These are the facts.
No, I agree.
They've lost 5-0 to Burnley. They've just been terrorised this season so far. Everything apart, to do with Cardiff, it's just not good enough. Kinnear's talking about the value of the side. I know this isn't what you're saying, Oscar, but I'm just putting a cap on it. Kinnear's talking about the value of the side, talking about the quality of the side. What they did in the window was fantastic. They might, revisit it in January. I'm already getting a little bit sick of where we're 5 games in and suddenly we need a number 9, we need a number 10, we need a new fullback, we need this. It's infinitely a ridiculous squad. So you are right in terms of build-up. We know what Cardiff City are going to do, but I expect Leeds United just deal with that. Deal with it and win the game. That is.
But we can't deal with it if we haven't got people to cover the space. Even if they're not.
Also, though, we're talking about covering the space, but Oscar, listen, you're not saying this, so I'm not putting words in your mouth. I'm waiting for Willie Gnonto to be the talisman everyone says he is. Had our worst pass completion percentage of anybody in the attacking area. Lost the ball more than anybody else out of that attacking 4 group. It's not good enough. This is against Burnley. It's not good enough.
I think he's better in the. I think he'd be better in 10.
Can I also say though? I think Solomon would be better in the 10 as well.
I think they both would be. I think Fosca's scared of it because I think he wants. Part of me thinks it's not Brendan Aaronson's creativity. I think it's his work rate that he values in the center. I think Solomon would give you that, but he's a little bit less pacey. I think he's worried about Gnonto taking plays off. That's what I would be worried about as a manager.
Would you
I
drop?
Just ask the question.
Go on, because we're gonna get Oscar. This is the last question. We're gonna have to wrap up.
Go on.
No, I'm saying. That's the question.
This is going to continue to be an issue for Leeds. It might not be an issue against Cardiff because Cardiff lack quality so much. But whenever we play a semi-decent team, they're going to sit off against us. When we talked about Bielsa in terms of teams suddenly worked out a blueprint of how to play against us, sit off against us, and when they win the ball back or have moments in transition, target our left-hand sides. It's what teams are going to do against us now. And I don't think the current setup, I think we've got the players to solve it in terms of Tanaka can cover space. He's a lot more mobile than Gruev. Rothwell's a lot more mobile than Gruev. You've got to try and find a way to get Solomon or Gnonto into the 10 and get a bit more power down the sides and look the technical quality inside in terms of.
I agree. Solomon I think Gnonto has to play his
Gnonto.
way into the 10, and I think the days of taking for granted that this is a great player. Show me, be unplayable. I haven't seen it. I've seen a couple decent performances in the 10. I haven't seen it enough. I think he has to get better. If he's the best player on our team by a country mile, as some of us like to say, he has to play like it.
Right, lads. Well, let's leave it there. Really appreciate you guys. That hour has flown by. Really good chat, lads. It's great when we actually have stimulus and things to talk about. Isn't it great? We're going to leave it there. Make sure you slap a like on the video. Make sure you check out www.oneleeds.com for your articles, videos, and good stuff, merch and stats bits as well that right into the site as well. We are going to be doing a competition as of 9 o'clock tomorrow. We're going to be live with Joe at 9 o'clock tomorrow. Make sure you check that out, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure. Oscar and Gabe, thank you so much for joining, guys. And as always, everyone, we will see you next week for the best show on YouTube, The Debrief. See you in a bit.